We got breaking news out of Major League Baseball where the Phillies have acquired closer Jhoan Duran from the Twins. That's per multiple reports. In return, the Twins will receive right-hander Mick Abel and catcher Eduardo Tate. Duran has spent the first 4 years of his career in Minnesota. This season, he's tallied an 0.201 ERA with 16 saves across 49 appearances. Duran will join a Phillies team that currently holds the second wildcard spot in the National League. They're also just a half game behind the Mets for first place in the NL East. And for more, let's bring back in our guy, Lance Brozdowski. So good at that name now. Let's start with the basics. Lance, what are your thoughts on this move by the Phillies?
Yeah, this is a blockbuster. I think we all were kind of thinking this would get done tomorrow, but the Phillies have jumped in and given them one of their top pitching prospects, not their top pitching prospect. That would be Andrew Painter, who's currently at AAA. He's too rich to give up for Duran. They go with Mick Abel, who has really popped onto the scene this year. In the last couple of years, he didn't really have much command. He's a high school righty who took some time to develop. But this year, he found his command, specifically to right-handed hitters, and it's kind of locked in and been a pretty good pitcher. He's been up and down for them, though. The Phillies have so much rotation depth. They haven't really needed him overall, and then they give up Eduardo Tate, I believe you say his name. I don't think it's like Tiat, from reading some things online here from Fangraphs and such. But he's kind of like an all-out power catching prospect. We'll see if he sticks behind the plate, but he's more like, I'd say, bat over glove. But a lot of people consider him some kind of major league catcher. Interesting guy to consider from the framing standpoint if we eventually move to like an ABS, how that impacts a guy like him. But I just count this trade out from like a value perspective. I think it's pretty appropriate for having 2 more years of control on Jhoan Duran and him being projected as probably like a top 3 or 4 reliever in baseball. This is the price you're going to have to pay if you wanted who I believe was probably the best relief pitcher on the market, and you get him now for multiple years. He's the Phillies closer. He will be getting the biggest outs in October. I love it for the Phillies.
All right, so you love it for the Phillies. Let's look at the other side of this coin. What are your thoughts on the return that the Twins are going to receive for him?
Yeah, again, I actually like it. I like the trade for the Phillies in the sense that I think they got the best piece in the trade. But from the Twins' perspective, if this team doesn't expect to compete over the next couple of years, which I think they're kind of signaling to some extent, although they do a really good job of developing minor league pitching. So I know they're missing a guy like Duran now going forward, but Griffin Jackson is another name that's been floated in trade rumors. He's been exceptional this season. He's actually been one of the most productive relievers in all of baseball by some of the underlying metrics, which is a bit surprising for a guy who basically doesn't throw his fastball at all. But I think it's a fair return. I like it for the Phillies in the sense it's a move that after you see the Mets go after Tyler Rogers from the Giants, they kind of go, hey, we're all in. We give up some prospects, guys that we don't necessarily think we're going to fit on our 40-man roster long term. And now the Phillies go, cool, you got a pitcher who's not as good as the pitcher we just got, and one that will be haunting your dreams for the next 2 years, especially with his walkout, which is one of the more entertaining things in all of baseball. So it's a win-win on both sides. Obviously, from the Phillies' perspective, they have the leverage guy for the postseason, but I think Mick Abel's a very good young pitcher. The Twins do a great job, as I said, on the pitching development side. I expect him to be some kind of, number 3, number 4 in a rotation for the next 6 years they have of him.
Look, you said you like this for the Phillies, and this is a team that we're used to seeing playing pretty deep in October. So what is next for the Phillies, do you think, ahead of the trade deadline?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I don't necessarily know how much more they have to give up on the prospect side of things. I mentioned Andrew Painter. They also have this Eden Miller at AA who's not having the best season, but both of these guys are probably the 1-2 in their system. Those guys, I think, would fit in a Joe Ryan deal or something along those lines. I don't think that's going to happen. So what I'll say, because the Phillies, again, have so much pitching, I don't necessarily think it makes sense for them to give up some assets for another pitcher when they have 3 or 4 or 5 starters that are probably better than most of those in the NL. I wonder whether they're a team that goes after like a Luis Robert now. He is not going to cost Painter and Miller, but that feels like the fit there. That would make a lot of sense. If they don't want to pay up for that, maybe it's something more like a Cedric Mullins, or maybe they grab another arm. But this is one of the few teams that doesn't need starting pitching, so they've been able to reallocate the resources, as Dombrowski's done, towards relievers and towards the other pieces that will now make them, I think, probably one of the 2 or 3 favorites in all of baseball to win the World Series. I just think they're a really well-rounded team. Their window is like right now, too, and it seems like Dombrowski's aware of that. They're all in.
They're all in, and you've been all in with us today. We appreciate it so much, Lance. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.